still, I was having damn hard trouble getting Little Big Man made. I couldn't figure out why. It was way inflated because they wanted him to reject it on an economic basis.
A 121-year-old man claiming to be the only white survivor of Little Bighorn. An actor who spent 14 hours daily in makeup transforming from teenager to ancient elder. And a director who was nearly killed by his own star during a method acting rage. These are 20 incredible facts about Little Big Man you never knew. From Dustin Hoffman's torturous physical transformation to the real rattlesnakes that almost shut down production. These behind-the-scenes stories reveal how Hollywood's most subversive Western changed cinema forever. 1. Hoffman's 14-hour ordeal. Dustin Hoffman endured the longest makeup transformation in film history up to that point, spending 14 hours in the chair for the 121-year-old scenes. Dick Smith applied latex pieces layer by layer, creating wrinkles, age spots, and sagging skin. Hoffman couldn't eat solid food, communicating through grunts and hand signals. The makeup was so restrictive he could only work 4 hours before exhaustion set in. Between takes, he breathed through straws to avoid damaging the prosthetics. The process was so grueling that Hoffman initially refused to do more than 3 days as the old man. Penn convinced him by shooting all old age scenes consecutively. 2. Brando's moral stand. Marlon Brando was offered the role of Old Lodge Skins for $1 million, but turned it down flat. He told Arthur Penn that having a white actor play a native chief would be cultural rape. Regardless of makeup or method, Brando suggested they find a real native elder instead. This rejection led Penn to Chief Dan George, changing cinema history. Ironically, Brando later sent George a congratulatory telegram after his Oscar nomination, writing, "You did what I never could have done." Brando's rejection became Hollywood's gain, as George's authentic portrayal revolutionized native representation in film 3, The Chief's Hidden Challenge. Chief Dan George harbored an extraordinary secret throughout filming. He couldn't read. The 71-year-old Salish chief memorized every line phonetically, with his son Leonard reading the script aloud repeatedly. George would practice for hours, learning not just words but their meaning and emotional weight. Nobody on set knew except Arthur Penn, who discovered it accidentally. When George held his script upside down, Penn never told the studio, fearing they'd replace George. His Oscar nomination for Best Supporting Actor made him the first indigenous North American nominee. George later said, "I acted with my heart, not my eyes." 4. Dunaway's religious crisis. Faye Dunaway's method approach to playing the sexually repressed Mrs. Pendrake triggered an actual psychological crisis. She remained in character between takes, speaking in biblical quotations and refusing to acknowledge crew members as anything but sinners. The breakdown climaxed when she locked herself in her trailer for 2 days, claiming she needed to purge her wickedness. A therapist was brought to set. Dunaway later revealed she genuinely experienced religious visions during filming. Her hysterical preaching scenes required no acting. She was actually in the grip of temporary religious mania. Penn used her real breakdown in the final cut 5, The Cavalry Charge Disaster. During the Little Bighorn battle, a cavalry charge went catastrophically wrong when horses ignored their riders and headed straight for Hoffman. The stunt riders lost control as their mounts, trained for traditional westerns, followed their instinct to avoid fallen bodies. But Hoffman was supposed to be playing dead. He saw 20 horses bearing down and rolled frantically between hooves. 3 stuntmen were hospitalized with trampling injuries. The sequence you see in the film is the actual near disaster, with Hoffman's terror completely genuine. He later said, "I stopped acting and started praying to whatever God watches over short Jewish actors." 6. Penn's Washita nightmare. Arthur Penn was nearly decapitated directing the Washita massacre. When a cavalry saber flew from an actor's hand directly at his head, Penn ducked at the last second. The blade embedded in a tree exactly where his neck had been. The scene required such realistic violence that actors frequently lost control of weapons. Penn refused to halt filming, believing authentic chaos was essential. He directed the rest of the massacre from inside an armored wagon. 14 crew members were injured during the 3-week shoot. The insurance company threatened to shut down production until Penn agreed to wear a military helmet. 7. Rattlesnakes without handlers. The Snake Society initiation scene used 12 live rattlesnakes with no professional handlers present. The Native American consultants insisted real snakes were essential for spiritual authenticity. The snakes had their venom sacs surgically removed but could still bite. Hoffman was terrified, sweating so profusely the makeup department worked constantly. 1. Rattler escaped, clearing the set for 3 hours. Another bit a camera assistant who required hospitalization despite the lack of venom. The insurance company discovered the snake scenes only after filming Wrapped. They retroactively raised the production's premium by $200,000. 8. Mulligan's Custer insanity. Richard Mulligan prepared for Custer by deliberately inducing megalomania, staying in character for the entire 5-month shoot. He demanded everyone address him as general, wore his costume to restaurants, and wrote actual military orders to crew members. Mulligan studied mental illness textbooks, mimicking symptoms of narcissistic personality disorder. His hotel called police twice when he gave battlefield speeches from his balcony at 3 a.m. Penn encouraged the madness, believing it created authentic unpredictability. Mulligan's wife filed for separation during filming, citing his complete transformation into a historical monster. He didn't break character until the rap party. 9 Just. Hollywood's language barrier breaks. Little Big Man became the first major Hollywood film to feature extensive Native American dialogue without subtitles. Audiences heard Cheyenne and Crow languages spoken naturally, understanding through context rather than translation. Studio executives panicked, demanding subtitles or dubbing. Penn threatened to remove his name if they changed it. Test audiences proved him right. They followed the story perfectly. The decision influenced decades of filmmaking, showing audiences were smarter than studios believed. Native consultants later said hearing their languages in theaters unchanged was more meaningful than any payment. 10. AIM's revolutionary influence American Indian movement activists served as technical advisors, creating constant studio anxiety. Russell Means and Dennis Banks corrected every detail, from war paint to burial customs. They brought actual sacred items, performed real ceremonies, and insisted on historical accuracy regarding massacres. The FBI monitored the set, suspecting radical activities. Several scenes were rewritten after AIM explained the original script's inaccuracies. Studio executives wanted them banned, but Penn insisted their involvement was essential. The final film's authenticity came directly from AIM's uncompromising presence. They transformed what could have been another Cowboys and Indians movie into a genocide indictment. 11. The military's ban. The Department of Defense banned Little Big Man from all military bases, declaring it detrimental to morale. The film's portrayal of Custer as a madman and the cavalry as murderers enraged military officials. This was during Vietnam, when parallels between Washita and My Lai were obvious. Some theaters near military bases were pressured not to show it. Veterans groups protested, calling it anti-American propaganda. The ban lasted until 1974. Ironically, many Vietnam veterans later said the film helped them process their own experiences with military atrocities. The controversy generated massive publicity, likely increasing box office revenue. 12. The Native Casting Revolution. Little Big Man broke Hollywood's shameful tradition by casting actual Native Americans in every Native role. No redface, no Italian actors as chiefs, no white stuntmen in war paint. This seems obvious now, but was revolutionary in 1970. The production recruited from reservations across North America. Many had never acted before. Penn hired dialogue coaches to help them deliver lines in English while maintaining dignity. Several became professional actors afterward. Will Sampson, who played Crazy Horse, later starred in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. The film proved Native actors could carry major scenes. 13. Washita's 3-week horror. The Washita massacre required 3 weeks to film 8 minutes of screen time. Becoming the most complex battle scene attempted in 1970, Penn choreographed every death to match historical accounts. Women and children fleeing were based on survivor testimonies. The scene used 200 Cheyenne extras who knew their ancestors had died in the actual massacre. Many wept between takes. Penn shot with 6 cameras to capture the chaos. Blood effects used a new pressurized system, creating realistic arterial spray. The MPAA demanded cuts, but Penn fought to keep the violence intact, arguing sanitizing genocide was immoral. 14. The 5 voices of Jack Dustin Hoffman developed 5 distinct voices for different ages, working with a dialect coach for months. Teen Jack spoke in high-pitched frontier twang. Young adult Jack deepened into rough western drawl, middle-aged Jack added whiskey raspiness. Old Jack wheezed through damaged vocal cords. Ancient Jack could barely whisper. Hoffman recorded each age separately, sometimes dubbing his own performance for consistency. The vocal evolution was so complete that sound engineers initially thought different actors had been hired. Hoffman damaged his vocal cords performing Ancient Jack, requiring therapy after filming. 15. Dick Smith's makeup revolution. The aging makeup techniques Dick Smith invented for Little Big Man became industry standard, later used in The Exorcist, Amadeus, and The Godfather. Smith created new latex compounds that moved naturally with facial expressions. He invented a stippling technique for age spots that looked subcutaneous rather than painted. The old age contact lenses were designed to show cataracts progressing. Smith kept detailed photographic records of each stage, creating Hollywood's first aging continuity Bible. His techniques were so advanced that modern CGI aging still references his work. The Academy ignored his achievement, not creating a makeup Oscar until 1981-16, The Real Western Violence. Little Big Man was the first Western to show frontier violence realistically. Scalping was depicted accurately, with skin-ripping sounds that made audiences faint. Arrow wounds showed proper entry and bleeding. Gunshots created authentic damage instead of neat holes. The production consulted medical examiners and battlefield surgeons. Penn insisted on showing what weapons actually did to human bodies. The makeup department used real autopsy photos as reference. Test audiences vomited during early screenings. Critics called it pornographic violence, but Penn argued sanitizing violence enabled it. The film influenced how Westerns depicted combat forever. 17. The accidental art film. 20th Century Fox thought they were funding a comedy Western starring The Graduate's Dustin Hoffman. The original pitch emphasized humor, with executives expecting Blazing Saddles-style satire. They discovered Penn's true vision only when viewing first rushes emergency meetings were called. Lawyers examined contracts for escape clauses, but Hoffman's star power and Penn's final cut rights prevented interference. Marketing departments scrambled to reposition the film. Fox executives later admitted they would never have approved funding if they'd understood Penn's actual intention. A devastating critique of American mythology and manifest destiny. 18. The daily combat Hoffman and Penn fought constantly, with disagreements sometimes becoming physical. Hoffman wanted Jack more comedic. Penn demanded tragic depth. They disagreed on line readings, blocking, costume choices, everything. Hoffman walked off set 3 times. Penn threw a chair at Hoffman during an argument about the massacre scene. Other actors formed betting pools on daily fight topics. Yet both later called it their best collaboration. The tension created unexpected character complexity. Hoffman said, "We fought like an old married couple, which is what made Jack feel so real." 19. The Lost 3 Hours. The original cut ran 5 hours and 20 minutes, with entire storylines removed for theatrical release. A subplot about Jack's Mexican wife and children was completely deleted. His time as a mule skinner for the army disappeared. An entire sequence about Jack meeting Wild Bill Hickok vanished. Penn fought for a 2-part release but lost. The deleted footage was destroyed in a vault fire in 1974, making restoration impossible. Script supervisors say the full version was Penn's masterpiece. Hoffman claims the lost footage contained his best work. The theatrical version represents barely half of Penn's original vision. 20. Chief Dan George's Sacred Gift. On the final day of filming, Chief Dan George performed an unauthorized ceremony, giving Hoffman sacred items from his tribe. This violated Salish law. Only blood members could possess these objects. George's tribal council later censured him, but he never apologized. He told Hoffman the items would protect him from the spirits we disturbed. Hoffman wore one of the items, a small bone carving, to every film premiere. Afterward, George's son later revealed his father believed Hoffman had genuinely become Cheyenne during filming, making the gift spiritually necessary. The ceremony was George's way of protecting both the film and Hoffman's soul. Which revelation about Little Big Man shocked you most? Was it Chief Dan George's incredible secret, or the real rattlesnakes that terrorized the cast? Share your thoughts on this groundbreaking Western in the comments below. And if you want more incredible stories about films that changed Hollywood forever, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. Until next time, remember what Old Lodge Skin said. Sometimes the magic works, sometimes it doesn't. Thanks for watching.